What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the BBP podcast. If you don't know what that is, that's Business Biblical Professionals. Today, we've got a very special episode. This is episode number 7. Number 7 of our podcast series. Today, we have none other than the Drew Whitson. What's going on, Drew?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. We've been getting a lot of good feedback on our videos saying, people want to keep consuming this content, so we had to get you on,
right?
See what you know, ask you some questions. So yeah, I mean, for the people that don't know who you are, which is probably the large majority of the audience, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you got going on.
Sure.
What kind of gig you got, all that.
Yeah. So Drew Whitson, my wife and I, we live in Matabidi. We've got a couple of 4 little tax deductions running around the house. I am currently a full-time professor of finance at Bethel University. It's my alma mater, and I've been there for about 6 years. But back about 15 years ago, I started investing in real estate. I was buying single-family homes and slowly moved up into smaller multifamily apartments. And today, I am the founder and principal of Endurus Capital. We invest in large multifamily assets in the Twin Cities, as well as in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ohio.
Those are some pretty good markets.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about, I know that lots of people say like, oh, I don't want to go to college because I don't want to learn from a professor that doesn't actually do what they're teaching, and you have that actual experience. So tell us what that's like. You're getting your experience and then being able to teach it and having that real world experience.
Yeah, it's really a fun sort of complement. I spent many years working in investment banking and then corporate finance here in the Twin Cities. And then when I moved into my role at Bethel University, it really had the opportunity to pair 2 different, sort of characteristics, sort of experience. The corporate finance side has been really valuable for Bethel University in order to provide a lot of real world examples, a lot of, I'm not an academic, I'm a practitioner. So I brought a lot of my experience over the years into the classroom. And then on the real estate side, it's been fun to share what private equity is, how deals come together. And so during each semester, I try to work my students through some of the deals that I'm actually working on, and sort of let them look under the hood of how these deals come together and sort of what other career paths look like besides just being an analyst at a company, right? What does it mean to start and work with private capital and run and manage businesses? So they pair really well together. I think Bethel appreciates that they have a private equity practitioner in-house, and I think the students really benefit from that. So it's been a great relationship. It's a good sort of complement to my experiences.
Yeah, awesome. So for those that don't know what private equity is, can you give like a private equity for dummies?
Sure.
Especially in real estate.
Yeah, especially when it pertains to real estate.
Yeah, so think of public equity, or sort of like the public markets, as your traditional stocks and bonds, right? You can buy equities, you can buy bond instruments. So that would be considered public equity, or sort of public investment. Private equity is an opportunity for individuals to invest into companies or businesses that are not private, right? It's all private equity. So it's individuals pooling capital together to go and acquire a business. And the business that we choose to acquire are multifamily apartment buildings. So think of 1 to 200 unit complexes. And we go out and we acquire those. We pool our investors' capital together. We acquire the business, and we hope to provide them a really good risk-adjusted return for their investment along with us.
Yeah. What have been some of your favorite deals that you've done throughout the course of your career as a real estate investor? If you could remember a couple.
Yeah, one of my favorite deals that we did was one here actually in St. Paul. We bought it was a smaller size apartment building, but we acquired it right before they announced the new soccer stadium was going to be built. Which of course, as soon as it got announced, the value of that neighborhood really went up a lot. It was what we would call sort of a full value add deal. So we went through working with our local lender, and we did a full renovation of the property. We did the inside, the outside, we renovated the units. We really changed the entire experience for the tenants, right? So we were able to significantly increase the operating performance of the property. We were really proud of the impact that property had on the neighborhood, because when we bought it, there was a lot of problem tenants, right? It was kind of the problem property in the neighborhood. And so we went in and were able to sort of change the profile of the tenants. We were able to increase the quality of the building. And really, we helped sort of restore that neighborhood, right? So we felt that we were doing well and doing good at the same time. And we got a lot of support from the neighborhood businesses. Even the police had stopped by to say, hey, we really appreciate your investment in this community, because it solved a lot of problems that was sort of running rampant out of that neighborhood. So it was one of our favorite deals that we've done, and we're really proud of the work that we did. And the results were fantastic.
Yeah. So speaking of making deals happen, for people who are listening, just FYI, you went from like 0 to 500 million in a matter of a couple of years, right?
Well, I mean, it's always a longer road, right? I would say the first single family homes I bought were during the down, sort of the financial crisis. So think 2008, 2009. And collectively, my partners and I, we have owned, over 4,000 units across the country with, worth several $100 million. So you don't go from that right away, right? You have to build that practice, build a reputation and the capital and the investor base. But it's sort of a building like any other company, sort of build it one piece at a time.
What do you think is the most important piece for somebody just starting out? Want to get into real estate private equity. What should be their focus?
Yeah, I mean, my advice for anyone looking to get into the space is, first of all, just learn as much as you absolutely can. 15 years ago, when I was starting out, there was no podcast, there was no books. You sort of kind of fumbled along with your real estate attorney to sort of figure out how these things came together. So there's a lot of resources out there in terms of opportunities to learn how the business works. But I would also pair that learning with some very specific concrete actions, right? Take opportunity to create some momentum in your life and some concrete things. Don't just learn, right? Learn should be the fuel to actually complete actions. And so even if it's something really small, doing a very small deal, finding some partners, analyzing a neighborhood or market, if you want to get in the game, you got to get going, right? So learn, develop a network, and take specific actions that create the momentum. Every day you should be a little bit closer to that dream. And if you do that consistently, eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, and go take his class. Go be his student. Right. He's a student at Bethel University. Go enroll in his class. He'll teach you everything.
Right.
No, that's awesome. I just kind of wanted to transition into that. So what, out of working with Bethel University, I know lots of people, they like to go produce at the life that they want, go choose the career that they want, and then they want to go teach people.
Yeah.
They want to teach students. So I think that's very noble.
Yeah.
And I feel like us as Christians, we're called to have, disciples and make disciples. So I feel like you're doing a great job of that. So tell us what that's like. What is your favorite thing about teaching students about, what you know and what you've learned throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity, I see a lot of the success that I've had in my life as a iteration of what people had invested into me when I was a student, right? So as a student at Bethel University, I felt like I provided an atmosphere and encouragement and education and a network. And so when I left my corporate job many years ago, because I had achieved enough real estate success that it allowed me kind of to do whatever I want, the question I asked myself was, if I could do anything and it didn't matter on the pay, what would I do? And an opportunity happened to just align at Bethel to come back and actually teach finance at some of the same courses that I had taken as a student. So for me, it was a way to sort of give into the next generation of students that I hope maybe in 20 years from now, they will figure out, they'll be successful and they'll come work with me or take my job back at Bethel, right? So it was my desire to find an opportunity to help reinvest into a school and a vision that had been so valuable to me.
Yeah, when it comes to giving back, that's certainly one of the things that, as Christians we're called to do, which is to pour into people, pour into the next generation to, essentially make it a better world, right? I'm just curious, how are you incorporating some of the, call it, biblical principles or some of the things you learn in the marketplace?
Yeah. So I think one of the common things that business students might hear at Christian universities is, "Hey, you're only in it for the money."
Yeah.
Right. You're only how do you reconcile your life of sort of just just wanting to make money? And I think there's some really great biblical lessons that help incorporate sort of what that vision should be. And I think my favorite one that I share with my students is Luke 19, when Jesus met Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a head of the tax collector, right? And Zacchaeus, during that interaction with Jesus, he sort of repented, right? He repented and said, I've cheated people, but from now on, I'm going to give half of my possessions to the poor, and anyone that I've cheated, I will make up fourfold. And I think one of the major takeaways from that parable or from that story was that Jesus didn't tell Zacchaeus to stop being a tax collector, right? What Jesus said, right, is go redeem the profession, right? He didn't stop being a tax collector, but now he was a Christian tax collector, right? And so I tell that story to my students because I see us as Christians in business, it's our job to redeem any profession that we are in, right? And so if you want to go be a banker, you know what? Banking needs some redemption, right? If you want to go into really any industry. I mean, you could be a pastor. The pastoral profession needs redemption as well. So my challenge to them is like, no matter where you are, you can impact the world by redeeming whatever profession you're in, because the world needs, Christians in every part of business.
Right.
One of the things that really is I think for my scenario, right, is that if you think about who are the tax collectors of today, right? Who do people generally not dislike and despise in business? I think it's landlords, right? Who likes landlords? No one likes landlords. The city doesn't like landlords. Tenants don't like landlords. Like no one likes a landlord, right? And there's a very unequal balance of power between a landlord and a tenant, no matter what the laws are, right? And it's generally people have to pay. It's the largest expense they have is paying rent. Right? They always want more. Tenants always want more, and tenants want to pay less, and landlords always want more. Right? So one of the ways I've been able to sort of articulate that is, look, even in a profession that has a pretty bad reputation, I'm trying to be a person that operates in that space, in that industry, to redeem the profession. Right? I want to be, not that I was Zacchaeus before, right? But I want to go in and be like, look, this is a space that is so looked down upon. Is that if you own, middle to low income rental properties, that's a rich place. That's rich soil for Christians to engage in that space and sort of redeem it. So if I have the ability to impact the world in low income housing in Memphis, right, by being in Minnesota, my students have an ability to impact the world in no matter what they do in any organization.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that specific space in real estate, like you mentioned low income housing or what's called Section 8, where you get subsidies from the government. I feel like that's a really good way to, prove yourself, because people will look at you and be like you said, oh, he's a slumlord, or he's slimy. Oh, he just wants money. He's taking.
I get that all the time.
He's taking money from the poor. But no, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this podcast is we wanted to create a positive connotation for people, like, hey, everybody in business isn't evil, we're not all greedy, we're not, whatever. So I definitely wanted to put that out there. But
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. So, when it comes to that, right, what are some of the call it specific things that you do on a daily basis, or how that looks like in your business? So, you take some of this concepts and you apply it. How does that look like?
So there's a couple ways that we sort of think about that. One is we feel that we are in service to the community. And so when we buy an apartment building, it's our opportunity to impact not just the residents, but the community surrounding it, right? Like I talked about in my first example, right? Oftentimes it also means that tenants should be treated with a lot of respect, right? If you have maintenance that needs to be done, you respond to that because you respect those tenants, right? It means that we have an opportunity to influence really the community that those tenants live in, right? And so we've been able to partner with groups like Apartment Life that is really designed to take apartment communities and convert them from people that sort of, it's just their house into a home, right? To develop a community sense, position. I think it has to do with how we treat, even with our investor base, like what do we think what is their capital being stewarded towards? We don't make trade-offs for profitability. We want profits.
Right.
We are there to make money for our investors, but we want to do that on an honorable, noble way. I could think of a couple examples. I had an apartment building in Memphis, Tennessee. It was a very poor part of Memphis. It was a very low-income apartment. But every Thanksgiving, my business partner and I, we would pay for the entire apartment complex to have a Thanksgiving dinner. Wow. So we buy them the pumpkin pies, the things, the turkey, the whole thing. And so no matter whether you were a brand new tenant, had been there for years, or ahead on your rent, or behind on your rent, every 68 units of that apartment building got a Thanksgiving dinner. And it didn't cost us very much. Like that doesn't actually cost a ton of money, but it created such great goodwill that even in that, it was one of our lowest end apartment. It had the lowest turnover of anything in our portfolio, and it was by far the most profitable. In fact, it was almost unheard of, but we never had any of our tenants that didn't pay. Like we had 100% collections. They paid late, but they all paid, right? And so I think that's another example of us trying to use, we can do good and do it well at the same time. And so it was a great testimony to how I think you can run apartments effectively. And in fact, when we first bought that apartment, we had a property manager that was just a little indifferent towards the tenants. And they said, well, if you do that, you're going to start, playing these games. It's going to cost you too much. So we fired him. We hired another a property manager that said, here's how we're going to do things. And it ended up being a very successful strategy, even in an environment where they didn't think that would work.
Mm-hmm. How do you think having an unwavering integrity, how important is that in the real estate business and in life? What would you benefit from doing that?
Yeah, I mean, so much of this business is based upon trust, right? It's just based upon trust and your ability to do what you say you're going to do, right? And you can have contracts and you can have lawyers, and I mean that helps. But if you don't say what you're going to do, right, you're gonna lose a lot of friends and investors and partners, and reputations will follow you all around the world, right? And so we continue to try to recognize that this is a very small industry. It's a very long game, and so it's always our best bet to put our best effort forward. It's best to try to be as clear and direct and honest with people, because we are investing out of reputation, right? When I want my investors to give me their capital to do one of our deals, they're not doing it because they understand the nuances of how real estate transactions work. They're not doing it because they're better at evaluating risk in a real estate transaction. They're doing it because they've developed trust with me and my partners, right? They're not better at this than I am. So if we can communicate that we are honest and transparent, doesn't mean we won't, we might not be wrong in an investment, right? We could lose money. We hope not to, but it means that we have made our best effort to develop that trust, that we've communicated, that we understand and can manage risk, and that we're trying to do everything we can to give them the best return possible.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Bible, in the Bible, it talks about sowing and reaping, right? That's one of the greatest principles that I personally take from the Bible. So, whatever you sow or whatever you speak into existence or whatever you give, monetarily or physically, you get that in return. And like you said, if you want investors' money, you have to earn it.
You have to earn the trust.
You have to earn that trust. If you want to have a good, client, not necessarily client base, but a good tenant base, you have to earn the trust of those tenants, and then they're going to be willing to give you, the rent money or whatever it is, and they're not going to give you problems. So yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Thanksgiving dinner, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Lots of people. That's one of the questions I was going to ask you later, like, what is your edge? And that sounds like a really good edge over other people that are investors. Cause unfortunately there's lots of people that are just, I just want to collect my rent check. I want it to be passive, and they don't want to get involved. They just see it as a, something to build wealth and not necessarily a project and investing in people. And that's one of my favorite thing about real estate, is that investing in people and treating people how people want to be treated.
Yeah.
So
good.
Awesome. Yeah. You have anything else?
No, I think we can jump into the final 4 questions.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to the main segment. Now we're going to hop to the final 4 questions. We do this at the end of every episode with each of our guests, just to see, some of the different things that we can relate back to you guys, whether it's books or knowledge or anything. So the first question is, besides the Bible, I mean, everybody knows that the Bible is, our manual to life. It gives us instructions, it gives us wisdom, and all of the wisdom on earth comes from God, because God is wisdom. What would be a book that you would recommend to somebody that's either starting out in real estate or business, or what is a good book that you have read that you would recommend?
Yeah, so one of the books that I'm currently reading through one of my classes at Bethel with my finance students, it's called Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel, and it really sort of focuses on a couple things. One is that your financial success in life really comes down to a lot of your own attitudes and behaviors. One of the examples that he gives is when we see people do crazy things with money, it's crazy to us, but it makes sense to them, right? And so it's really about understanding what your beliefs are, what your biases are, and trying to be really reflective on that in order to make good investing and good money decisions. And really the second thing I think he emphasizes through the book is that it's really about patience and risk management, right? If you can simply, he says, it doesn't really matter what you invest in, so long as you have a time for that investment to compound and you don't do anything foolish enough to lose all of it, as long as you can stay invested. So patience, longevity, risk management, and he's got some really fun stories about how people behave with money and how they think. So Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel would be a good recommendation of a book I think everyone would benefit from reading.
Got a quick follow-up. So, what are some of the investments out there that would give you compounded investments, a compounded return? Yeah,
I mean anything from anything where you have return that gets recycled, right? So if you invest in savings bonds, right, government savings bonds, and you continue to recycle the interest from that back into more. If you invest in the stock market, right? That continues to go up and the dividends get reinvested back in there. So simply having it in a diversified investment is really what you need, right? And make sure you invest in something that has a level of risk you're comfortable with, and then just be patient, right? Slowly add to it, let it compound, let it grow, and don't take any unnecessary risks with it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a great answer. We'll roll it right into the second question then. So like I mentioned earlier with the Thanksgiving dinner, what would be an edge that you would say that you have, and it can be any profession that you've had or in your current marketplace where you feel like you're not necessarily better, but you have something over someone else that makes you different, makes you special.
Or yourself.
Yeah. I think one of the things is really to find a network of individuals that is on a similar plane as you in terms of where your business is at, the kind of questions you're at. I'm involved in a couple different masterminds, and I've found those to be incredibly useful sources of encouragement, inspiration, right? When you are running the kind of businesses you're running, there's very few of you out there. So it's nice to find people that understand what you're going through, what your challenges are, and help make each other better. And also having really good business partners, right? Having people that you just inherently trust. I was telling these guys before we started, my two business partners with Endurus Capital are guys that we did a couple deals with just individually before we kind of put it all into one singular brand. But we waited a really long time to do that. We really wanted to make sure that we were compatible from a temperament, skill set, risk management, sort of vision of the organization. It can be really tempting just to jump into a new business or partnership, but I think really moving yourself in a very careful way to make sure that you have a similar vision is really going to be important. So sort of masterminds, good peers, and then great partners, I think is what help give you the best ability to sort of see the industry and the marketplace and operate the best you can.
Excellent. We'll roll into the third question now. So I know that you're a professor at Bethel University. You told that to our audience. So for those that don't know what Bethel University is, it's a college. It's a Christian college that's located in Minnesota, Arden Hills area, Minnesota. So what would be an example of a ministry that you support? I know that could be an example. I don't know if you're supporting anything else. If you want to shout something out, what's going on with that?
Yeah. So when my wife and I were growing up, we each attended different church camps growing up. She went to a camp called Camp Shatek down in southwestern Minnesota. I went to a camp called Camp Lebanon up in near St. Cloud. And so I think that is one of the Christian camping ministries is something that we've spent a lot of time, energy, and money supporting over the years. We send our kids there. We try to donate money. I've even been on the board of one of those camps for a while as well to sort of contribute. So we really see that opportunity as a way, I think, having kids have a time to go to camp. I mean, when was the last time a high schooler went somewhere without their phone for a week? Right? Probably never, right?
Probably never.
So the opportunity to have those kinds of experiences out in the country, so they really get separated from other friends in technology, really just have a time to focus on God, right? A meeting place with God is what they say. So we spend a lot of our energy in supporting those types of Christian camping ministries.
Awesome.
That's good.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. If anybody wants to get involved into a camp or a ministry that's like, what should they do? What should be a first step? If they want to do something like that?
I mean, talk to your local church, right? Find out most churches have partnerships with Christian camps, right? So talk to the youth group. Hey, where are you sending students? If they're not sending them anywhere, figure one out, right? In the Twin Cities here, a lot of churches go to Trout Lake Camp, or it's a popular one, Camp Lebanon, right? There's just a variety of them. So I think get involved with your local church, find out where they're connecting their youth group to, and if not, help them make some connections.
Perfect. All right, we'll wrap up everything with this final question. And I kind of like to save this question last because it's kind of like the showstopper question. So what would be the best advice that you've personally ever received or that you've given, say, like one of your students or someone that you've been mentoring or something?
Yeah, I think it would be make sure you continue to create momentum in your life. And what I mean by that is it is always better to do something for 5 minutes a day than once for half an hour on the weekends, right? If you have a vision or a goal, take a time to have some type of that goal being progressed every single day, right? Because that creates habits and momentums. I've often told people that if you want to build a real estate business, right, and you didn't do anything one particular day, could you write one email that night? Is there one thing you could do, make one connection, one email, one bit of research to at least have one day that you did something, right? Not to have a 0 days. 0 days is when you do nothing towards your goal, right? You'll find that if you have some sort of momentum in your life that keeps you moving forward and keeps progressing, it creates sort of just an acceleration, right? It creates that consistency. And so I think that's the right answer. Continue to find ways to build momentum. Are you any closer to your goals today than you were yesterday? If not, what is something tiny you could do, right? If you want to get in better shape, could you do one push-up? Right? At least that gives you something, right? And you're more likely to do something the next day if you're going to try to, continue to reach that goal. So create momentum and find ways to keep that going, even if it's in small ways.
Fabulous. All right, everyone. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today's episode. That was episode number 7. Thanks so much, Drew, for
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Drew.
coming out here and letting us pick your brain with a lot of these different questions. But yeah, if you guys want to give us a like, subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff, hit the bell notification. So we're going to let you know when we come out with another video, another podcast. Again, thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys next time.
Good.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.